The final piece from Daniel Kramer's article detailing Justin Hollander's findings from the GM meetings labels excited about the bullpen Justin Hollander is and what that means for the Mariners going forward. And obviously, we know the key piece to the Mariners bullpen returning in 2025 would be Mr. Matt Brash. Mr. I led the league in games appeared in 2023, and then I hurt my elbow. My arm hurts, says Matt Brash. Colton, there's talk in this that I think something that we kind of all figured with how he's shown to be progressing and like he's already thrown off a mound this winter, that Hollander is optimistic that if he had to put a timeline on it, even though he doesn't want to, that we could see Brash at the end of late April or even early May, which is a lot sooner than I think a lot of people would have penciled in for a guy that got TJ in May of last year. But 12 months return time is kind of like the time frame we're looking at there. How impactful would Matt Brash be to this Mariners bullpen to kind of just kick off that first, like within the first half of that season? You know what I mean?
He is immediately a guy that slots in right behind Andres Munoz in this bullpen. And another thing that is mentioned by Kramer here is Gregory Santos being healthy. That's another guy that's back there. It relegates, like the addition of Brash relegates Colin Snyder to not have to be a setup guy anymore. Mm-hmm. It relegates if JT Chargois is still here. He doesn't need to be pitching in the 8th inning or the 7th inning. You shorten games by making the best bullpen possible, and going from Santos to Brash to Munoz, you basically have cut a lot of games into 6-inning games, because those three guys, on theoretically and all things considered, isn't always going to be the case. That is one of the best back end of the bullpens you will see, and it reminds me similarly to when all these guys were good, mind you, but like what the Astros had when it was like Ryan Presley. Who else was there? Hector Neris was good at the time.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Rafael Montero's first year with them, like that was a big, like, kind of similar. I think a guy you could liken to a lot of the people that just come out of the pile for the Mariners that have fantastic years. Like you brought up Colin Snyder not having to be a setup man anymore. It's not that he doesn't have to be. He still can be, because like obviously you're not going to throw out Santos, Brash, Munoz every single night, but it lessens the impact every single night that he has to face. Like he will eventually get some low leverage outings instead of every single time having to go out there and pitching in high leverage. Like it's going to greatly reduce the amount of stress innings that a lot of our relievers go through. And that was kind of shown in looking at this past year's bullpen compared to previous years. Daniel Kramer notes that the Mariners were the 4th best combined bullpen in F4 from 2021 to 2023. They were 26th in F4 in 2024. I honestly don't think the bullpen was that. At least I didn't think it was that bad. Like, truth be told, night in and night out, like, you got big years from Troy Taylor. Maybe not. A big, like, month and a half of Troy Taylor. Big year from Colin Snyder, I'd say. Munoz had a pretty solid year. Like, there was flashes where this bullpen felt like, okay, it's starting to go in the right direction, and then the wheels just kind of fall off for, like, one bad Austin Voth appearance, a couple bad Mike Baumann appearances, and then he's gone. But if you have Brash, if you have Santos, that just completely changes the outlook of this bullpen going forward. And that also shouldn't necessarily prevent them from making additions to the bullpen as well. Like, I don't think this time frame should eliminate them from being in talks to acquire arms. I mean, they already made their first signing. Adonis Medina, welcome to the pitching lab. Hello, Devin Williams' airbender changeup. Welcome to Seattle, Devin Williams Jr., if you will. But there's definitely room for the bullpen to get better. And I think with the addition of Brash being back, we'll just call it May. I don't want to be a little too excited and say April. And if Santos has a healthy offseason, like that, like you're saying, lengthening the bullpen greatly shortens the games. And if Chargois is back, has a pretty solid year, like there's a lot of decisions that can be made, but it also, I don't think should, like I said, prevent them from making a move to get better in the bullpen, or at least acquire more depth this offseason.
Because of the moves that can be made by adding Matt Brash, who in 2023, he had 78 games pitched, like you said, led the league. 70 and 2/3 innings pitched with 107 strikeouts, good for a 13.6 Ks per 9. He had a 1.30 ERA plus, a 2.26 FIP. Just goes to show how good Matt Brash was in 2023. And he is a guy where if Munoz gets hurt, I am very comfortable with Matt Brash stepping into that closer role, like if you need him to. And like you said, it should not keep you from making other moves. However, knowing that Matt Brash could be healthy by, April or May or whatever it will be, and ideally Gregory Santos is healthy, kind of eliminates the need for some of these guys who we've talked about recently in the non-tender kind of situation. Like, you look at that bullpen, is there room for Trent Thornton? Is there room for, Gabe Spire or Taylor Saucedo? I don't know. Because you think about the locks, assuming everybody is healthy on May 15th.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you have Andres Munoz, you have Colin Snyder, you have JT Chargois, if they decide to keep him around. You, of course, have Matt Brash, Gregory Santos, probably Troy Taylor.
Yeah.
Maybe Taylor Saucedo or Gabe Spire. I think those could be interchangeable there.
Uh-huh.
And then you could go with Edward Bizardo, is
Yeah.
a guy they've liked quite a bit. Who am I missing here that I haven't
Did you
mentioned?
say Voth?
Voth is another guy. I think he might be someone that gets non-tendered.
Well,
yeah.
I think what you can do is you bring back a decent amount of them. You don't have to bring back every single arbitration eligible reliever. Whoa. And then as soon as you get Matt Brash back, you look around the league and say, who needs a reliever? We've got them. And you trade them for maybe a position of need in May, because we know that guys aren't always going to stay healthy. And also within the bullpen, if one of those guys has options, like does Sauce still have an option? Does Spire still have an option? I feel like Bizardo probably still does, but maybe he doesn't. But
Taylor definitely does.
Yeah, Taylor does. So if you say just bring Brash back, and yeah, it would suck to say okay, Troy Taylor, you're pitching amazingly, but go to the minors. Using that as a stash option for a legit bullpen arm to come back up later should another bullpen guy get injured. We saw Munoz pitching on one leg, a sore back, several times this past season. This is the first time he's gotten multiple outs of multiple saves of 4 outs or more in a singular season. They whittled him down to the bone. If you have as much insurance as the Mariners do as it stands right now, I'd say, as far as bullpen depth is concerned, I'm kind of backpedaling on the idea of trading one of them as soon as Brash is healthy, but just store them down in the stash them in the minor leagues, keep them down there if you are able to, and just kind of play the waiting game of if a guy starts to pitch poorly, then you trade him and you bring up another guy, like they've done with Stanek, like they did with Trevor Gott in 2023. There's going to be someone like that this upcoming season that's just not going to be up to snuff anymore, and you can replace him in-house a lot easier.
We can guarantee to you that there will be somebody on this roster, on opening day, that we didn't mention, that we didn't think of.
Oh, yeah.
But some other guys that do kind of fit the bill for that, obviously Hunter Cranton is a guy we've talked about a lot that could make the team at some point next year. Travis Kuhn's a guy that I think makes a lot of sense as well. Unfortunately, Luis Crivello is not with the team anymore. He's with the Rangers now, so I can't wait for him to close the door on us multiple times in 2025. But the Mariners will always go out there and add guys to the pile. But the return specifically of Matt Brash makes it so those guys don't have to be anything more than a middle relief type. It means that they don't have to be what Colin Snyder was in 2023. And frankly, like you said, there's a good chance that this three-headed monster, once again, doesn't happen. All three of these guys have had plenty of injuries. And so if one of them is hurt, then can you rely on some of these guys you add? I mean, Adonis Medina, a guy, like you said, added to the pile. Can he become something and fill in if Gregory Santos isn't ready to start the season or something like that? Maybe. And with the Seattle Mariners, we know how good their starting rotation is. We know how good the back end of their bullpen can be. If you are able to get all those guys healthy, if all the stars align, you have the deadliest pitching staff in all of baseball, in my opinion. And that offsets some of the terrible offensive production that you could get from guys like Mitch Haniger and Mitch Garver next year. And I think that because of that, Matt Brash coming back early is such a good sign for what this team can hope to be next year. Because frankly, we can't really just sit here and wait anymore. We can't sit here and wait for, Cole Young will be ready next year, so that's good. Or he might be ready later this year. No, you have to go out there and step on the throat of anybody that you're playing. And if that means adding to the bullpen, even if Matt Brash and Gregory Santos are healthy, then you have to do it. You have to go. Dude, if Devin Williams comes and knocks on your door this offseason, you say yes.
Oh, of course.
You say how much, But there are also guys that have had, bad years in the past. You and I have talked about, mainly you, Andrew Kittredge. It's a guy that makes sense. Add him to the team. Mm-hmm. He's a middle relief type for you. Could be a setup guy. I think the Mariners should overload on relievers this offseason, even with the thought that Matt Brash could be healthy, because that is how important it is for this bullpen to be good in 2025.